Welcome to another job mentorship session. I am Hope. I'll be hosting you today. So let us start. So today's session is about risk management and business continuity. And with us, we have Gloria Nyaboke, who is an ICT risk officer at Kingdom Bank. So Gloria has 5 years experience in IT support, accounts assistant, and customer care roles. She is a cybersecurity enthusiast with skills in penetration testing, digital forensics, vulnerability assessment, and IT network and system security operations. She's worked in different companies, her current one being Kingdom Bank as an ICT risk officer. She's also worked as an associate forensic and risk officer at Stilt Africa. She's worked under the Public Service Commission, among other areas. So Gloria will take us through risk management. And as we know, every company has risks, how to manage them, and how to ensure in case of an issue or something occurs in the cybersecurity field, the business continuity plan is well up and things move smoothly. So thank you, everyone, and welcome, Gloria.
Okay, thank you, Hope. I think you can confirm to me, am I audible enough?
Yes, you are.
All right, thank you for that. Wow. So you're just reading out my CV and I was like, oh my, that's a very detailed CV. So I don't know what are the house rules? What are the house rules? Like, will I go through the session and then guys can ask questions later? Do I need to put on my video? Do I have a presentation? So you can give me that and then we can proceed.
So I don't think there are house rules really, but anyway, the session runs from 7 to 8. So questions can come at the end of your presentation. That's when we take questions. That's basically it. Yes, feel free to present your screen. And if you want to share your video, that's well and good.
All right. Thank you, Hope. I will choose not to share my video, my camera on. I can do it at the end of the session. So as you've heard, my name is Gloria Nyaboke Nyamosi. I'm working as an ICT risk officer at Kingdom Bank. So I've had experience in different areas. I've worked in accounting, I've worked in forensics and fraud investigations, and currently I'm working in a bank. But in a bank now, I'm working more from a control side of it. So I'll just share my screen. Hope, can you see my screen?
It's taking a moment to load. There. Yes, I can.
Right. Thank you. So I used your logo without your permission, so I hope it's okay. Because now I should content. So I'll take you through what is risk management and for you to understand business continuity. And before that, it will be prudent enough for you to understand who is Gloria or who is this person behind the camera or behind the voice. So Gloria works as an ICT risk officer, also works in the capacity of the information security officer at Kingdom Bank. When we speak of risk and things around InfoSec, then we think about what's the broader aspects of what we call GRC, the governance, risk and compliance issues. So anything to do with audit, system audits, I would handle that. Anything to do with ICT risk, I would handle. And compliance issues with regards to ICT related regulatory, contractual, and legal obligations. So in basic, what the trainings that I've put here are those that are relevant to my current role and also towards mentorship or level in which that, like for the crowd I'm speaking to. So I've trained as a cybersecurity analyst with the Cyber Shujaa program. I was privileged to be in the cohort 1. That was in May 2022. We graduated in July 2022. With regards to that, I'm also a certified ISO 27001 lead implementer. That is implementation for information security management systems, which cuts across InfoSec, cybersecurity, and data privacy practices. So I'm certified by Trust. And then on my social media platforms, which I think have also been shared before, my LinkedIn profile is Gloria Nyaboke, and my profile as is on this particular slide is the profile I have used. And on my Twitter, Najita Glow too. So that's my Twitter handle, but I'm not really active on Twitter. Membership and those that are relevant to this. I'm an associate member for the ACFE. ACFE is the body for forensic examiners, and also a member of ESACA, my association. And then my interests are more reading. I'm now not only a cybersecurity enthusiast, but also issues around data protection. And also I love giving back to society. So in my role in Kingdom Bank, most of you wonder, what do I do? Like, what is my day-to-day business? So what I do, I review the critical systems, and then I give adequate IT controls to be able to mitigate any information security risks. And then I perform continuous reviews. So sorry. Okay, someone unmuted. Sorry. Okay, thank you. So in my day-to-day, I review critical systems, and then I give appropriate and adequate security controls. I also review systems from the technical point of view, where we do penetration testing and VAPTs, and also I do daily reviews of, let's say, all events. For example, you guys know what SIMs are. A SIM is where we ingest logs from different sources, and we have the events captured. So from the reports that we get consumed from the SOC team, then I'm able to review and see patterns and query activities which are out of the norm. And then I provide IT security support for IT related projects. So for example, if you're doing a project, I've provided with the software development team, we've given them, these are the information security requirements that need to be incorporated maybe in the system. And as part of that, to ensure that there's compliance with best practice and the bank's policies. So for best compliance with such, we look at the frameworks, best practice frameworks. For example, COBIT, NIST, you guys are aware of CIDSS. I'm sure you are aware of also the OWASP top 10. So we look at those best frameworks so that to ensure they are integrated within our systems. I do provide IT support for security services. So there are other security services, for example, in the event that there is a forensic audit a forensic investigation that is ongoing, so I'll provide support, and also to internal audit. In the event that they need support with maybe a system audit, I do provide that. Out of it all, in the at the center of any information security system, or at the center of any company, is the people factor. So for us to ensure that we have effectiveness of information security controls, then we need to have an awareness program. So I carry out trainings and awareness for information security and cyber related issues around the bank. Then together with the ICT security team, I do what we call threat intelligence. So for any organization, and in the current threat vector, it's good to understand what level of exposures or threats are out there. what is our threat vector, and how then can we be able to keep abreast of that fast moving or changing environment and be able to avoid maybe getting a cyber attack. So threat intelligence helps us to build knowledge and put in place adequate measures so that we protect the bank's information assets. So there's also the project for ISMS implementation. I talked about the ISO. ISO 27001 is a standard. So for a bank to be or an organization to be certified against that standard, then you need to implement what we call an information security management system. So I run with the implementation, the maintenance, and continual improvement of that. So before I joined Cybershuja, most of my profile, I didn't work really in IT. I did more of IT support and network administration. But when I joined Cybershuja program is when I got to learn cybersecurity skills. When I remember when I was joining, with we were with Dr. Paula taking us through the sessions. We had Neville taking us through the lab. I really didn't know, but Cybershuja impacted my life and changed like my role. If you even see my CV, like I shifted from this side of the world to joining digital forensics and then later working as cybersecurity an ICT risk officer at the bank. So I'll go to what my roles or what this session is all about. It's about risk management and business continuity. So I'll maybe pose to the listeners, what is a risk in a lay, or like what do you understand what a risk is? Anyone can volunteer, just unmute and answer.
A risk is a possibility of a threat.
Thank you, Amani. Amani has said that a risk is a possibility of an event. Anyone else? Okay. You're right. So a risk is a potential for harm or financial loss. Some people would give risk as the uncertainty that could have a negative or positive effect on objectives. So a risk basically is any potential thing that will happen that could cause harm. There are other risk frameworks will look at a risk from both. It can either be a positive or a negative. There's a risk that could come, but then it acts as an opportunity for a particular organization to leverage on it. So in simple terms, a risk is a possibility of something bad happening. So then we go to now understanding what is risk management. So risk management is now how we continually identify, analyze, evaluate, and treat loss exposures, and then eventually monitor risk control and financial resources to mitigate the adverse effects of a loss. So if anything potentially could happen, then it means that thing, if it happens, it has an effect on it. So how you identify that thing, that potential cause, you analyze it, you evaluate it, you treat it or mitigate it so that you reduce the exposure, and then continuously monitor that it doesn't change. Then that whole process is what we call the risk management process. So in a nutshell, it not only prevents potential problems, that it stops things from going wrong, but also finds potential benefits, helping things to go right. So risk doesn't just only point like this is a bad thing, but it gives you how else can you do this the right way for you to be able to get a potential benefit. So, sorry. So a risk management process will go. There are so many different steps, but we can summarize them into 5 steps. There's the first step of identification. You identify potential threats to information assets. So when we now change from, because risk management is very broad, or there are different areas or pillars to risk management. So for ICT risk management, we identify potential threats to information assets. So remember, ICT risk will look at the critical infrastructure within the IT environment. And what I mean by an information asset is anything that is used to process, store, or like control data or information. So that is an information asset. And let's say a machine or a laptop is an information asset. Even a documented, a scanned copy of financial records of a client, that's an information asset to an organization. So when we look at ICT risk, we look at it, we define risk from both identifying the asset, which is the asset that is at risk, and then we look at what are the threats and vulnerabilities. Okay, a threat is a new incident with potential harm to a system. So a threat is a potential for harm. Then a vulnerability is a weakness that an hacker or anyone malicious can be able to exploit. So when it comes to ICT risk, you have to put the two together. There has to be threat and a vulnerability. There could be a threat, but maybe there is no weakness in that system. Then the risk, when it comes to an ICT point of view, maybe the risk cannot materialize. So for ICT risk, you have to look at both the threat and vulnerability for you to be able to identify that risk. So the risk is the potential damage that when a threat exploits a vulnerability. So let's say, for example, I use a very simple, let me try and use a very simple example. You have a door. And you actually do lock your door. Okay, the threat or the potential harm is somebody coming in and breaking the door. So the vulnerability is a weakness. Let's say, for example, if the padlock that you're using is a weak padlock, somebody can just come with a wire and tap it. Now that's a weakness. If they're able to exploit that weakness, okay, that weakness, then the threat will materialize and eventually it become a risk. So in that, we also look at what we call existing control. For example, maybe you put a padlock, it's weak, but then in the existing control, you have a dog that either barks, or you have an alarm system that in the event that somebody tries to lock the door, there are sensors and they could raise the alarm. So you look at also the existing control. Then after identifying the risk, you go ahead to assess it. So in assessment, we're looking at the likelihood and the impact. So the likelihood is the possibility of it happening, and the impact is the severity of what will come out of it, like what is the financial loss that could come out of it. Then we go to a further step of doing evaluation. In evaluation now, we are calculating the risk. So most organizations, we calculate risk by calculating the impact and then the likelihood for it to give us a risk score. After you've gotten the risk score, now that is used to identify and evaluate the treatment option. So you could either get a low, a medium, or a high, depending on the criteria that you use. So there is low, medium. There's actually people even use insignificant, low, medium, critical, highly critical, and catastrophic. Yeah, but the normal that I will use, I just use the basic measure of low, medium, and high. So then you look at your treatment options. Either you mitigate the risk, you reduce it, you can either transfer, you can either get an insurance, you accept the risk as is. But if you're accepting, there's also what we call an acceptance criteria, and there's also avoiding the risk. So avoiding the risk is actually getting away with the whole process. Then after you have put in a treatment plan, then you come back and monitor the effectiveness of that treatment plan. And also after doing a treatment, you also go back and reevaluate your risk to actually identify what is the residual risk. What is that risk that remains after you run the treatment plan. So the next, what I've shown is more of just an evaluation table of what we use to do risk evaluation. So on the left side, we have what we call the risk rating and the risk score. So if you're going to use the matrix of, that is the three matrix phenomena, where we're using the low, medium, and high, and we're using scores of 1 to 3, then that is how we are able to calculate risk. So you multiply the likelihood and the impact. So if the likelihood is 1 and the impact is 1, then you're going to get a low risk. If the likelihood is 3 and the impact is 3, then that's a high risk. So that will be able now to tell you what are these, how then do you mitigate or treat the risk. So go to the next slide, which is more of the risk acceptance criteria. In most organizations, acceptable low risk are usually acceptable risk. Like a low risk, the likelihood of it happening and the impact or the severity of it is within maybe the organization's risk appetite. A risk appetite is something that how much are you willing to lose? Maybe I'd pose, for example, if somebody hacks into your phone account, how much are you willing to lose? Anyone? Give it a try. How much are you willing to lose if someone hacks into your account? Anyone? Yes. Yes,
I wouldn't be willing to lose any amount.
That's 0. So your risk appetite is 0. Anyone else? Okay. So if you're willing not to lose anything, that means your risk appetite is 0. So the acceptable risk for you is 0. So you will not accept anything above 0. So then the organization now will go and evaluate. So most of the medium risks that follow within the medium usually they are supposed to be mitigated. So they are supposed to be treated. So you can either choose to mitigate the risk, you can either choose to avoid the risk by taking away, like getting rid of that process or that system that is going to bring the risk, or you can transfer the risk. That can be through insurance. And then we have the high. The high also, they need to be treated. So treatment for high will be given. There's also criticality for treatment. So high risk will be given priority because the likelihood and impact of them occurring is very high. So they are given high priority. There are also medium risks which can be accepted, but for them to be accepted, they must be recommended by management. So the senior management has to accept that we're willing to accept this risk as is and not go ahead to treat the risk. So let me go straight to business management, business continuity management. In a nutshell, that's risk management. So business continuity management. When we talk about business continuity management, it is a process that establishes a secure and resilient business environment capable of mounting an immediate and effective response to a major incident. So, number one, there are keywords to note there. Establishes a secure and resilient. So, there's security, there's resilience, and then there's the capability, okay, to be able to have an immediate and effective response to a major incident. Okay, who can give me, apart from, or even the ones which I mentioned there, any types of incidents or anything that could cause a disruption to normal operations of an institution, an organization, or even a country? Just let's just get a few. Those are many. I'm sure guys you can be able to give me 1 or 5, actually 5. So can be mentioning any volunteers. Yes, William. William.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes. For example, I'll say a rocket attack, like what Israel and Palestine are experiencing.
Yeah, rocket attack or even just war. I saw somebody else and sorry, I'm a bit purity.
I'd say robberies.
Yes, robbery. If somebody comes and steals, yeah, that's an what's an incident? Anyone else? Mention name. Asha. Asha, you were in the same class, or is this a different Asha? Okay, Victor. Victor. Victor and Steven. Any of you can go ahead. Steven.
Earthquake.
Earthquake, yes. Earthquake can destroy property. Victor. Victor, you have. Oh, you're good to go. Okay. Yeah, that's enough. So a fire, a flood, like the El Ninos, which are we are like foreseeing the weathermen keep saying that there's El Nino coming, which might come with floods. Then also a cyber attack is an incident. Equipment failure. For example, if your server goes down, no, that's an equipment failure. So that can be an incident. And there's also power failure. Like for example, if you don't have redundancy or even internet failure, you don't have redundancy for your power, for your internet. So that can cause a disruption to a normal operating organization. So what happens within business continuity? We look at it from like that is a normal curve for business continuity management explained, like what happens. So the first thing is an emergency response. So depending on the incident, there is what we call, you either contact your service provider. For example, if it's a fire, you must have contacts for let's say the firefighting men. So you contact the service station men and they come, you must have contact for them. So you need to contact them. You need to have a 24/7 response. Let's say for example, there's a robbery. Okay. So unapata either the alarm goes, let's say in a bank, if there's a robbery, then the alarm will go on and the 24/7 response usually will come in and take charge. So there's the safety of personnel. So at the center of every business, personnel is very key. Okay, that is one thing that management usually focuses on, taking care of their person. So the personnel and also the equipment or the information asset or the assets that the bank or the organization has. So the first thing is ensuring that you have emergency response. Number two, you look at your crisis management and communication. Okay, so for communication, you have to do a communication for both internal and external communication. So it has to be defined within your policy. How do you communicate in the event of a crisis? In most organizations, external communication is done by the MD or the CEO or the senior most. Yeah, and internal communication can be done internally with how, depending on the organization structure. Then you have what we call call trees. Call trees are the escalation. How do you escalate matters in the event that person A, who's let's say our fire marshal is not around, who's the next in line? That's person B, C. So you have to have all that, and it has to have their contacts have to be there. Then there's decision making. Okay, the decision now is made. For example, in the event of a cyber attack, a decision has to be made. Like what is our way forward? How are we going to recover? It's a ransomware attack. Huh? How are we going to recover back our critical systems? Okay, then there's protecting the reputation in the event of an incident, and especially for big organizations. Okay, this reputation nowadays is a very, very critical aspect within any organization. That in the event, you see how Safaricom were attacked by the DDoS attack. So you could see everybody was on social media tweeting, oh, Safaricom is down, Safaricom is down. That's how, that's part of reputational risk. So then how does the organization ensure that in the event of a crisis, they protect their reputation? What type of information is going out there, yeah, about your organization in that moment of a crisis? Then in that section of still in that phase of crisis management is where now you initiate your BCP, your business continuity plans. So then we'll go now to business recovery. So what are these aspects of your business continuity are going to help you recover back? So we have what we call alternate locations. So we encourage organizations to have alternate working locations. For example, if your HQ supports all your inter branches, then you need to ensure that in the event that your HQ is disrupted from normal business operations, that there's an alternate working location. Yeah, it's a replica of that, like a physical working location where the IT, remember, for example, the AD, the domain administrator, yeah, this person has to be within the network for them to be able to either resolve or even manage, do domain administration. So you need to ensure that there's an alternate working location that this system administrator can be able to go to ensure that they continue working normally. There's workarounds. There's also alternate locations now for restoring our critical services, what we call the disaster recovery sites. Where now, in the event that we are attacked and our data center is sitting at location A, we have a replica of the same in location B, so that if, let's say, it's a ransomware, we can restore critical services from the last snapshot and ensure that we continue serving our customers, or even the business or the organization continues to operate from a different site that is not the primary site. So we have what we call the secondary site. So people are setting up disaster recovery sites. But now, even with the new cyber attacks, you get to find that still the secondary sites will be affected mostly by ransomware, because if it's a replica of the same and you keep on backing your, then we say it's a real-time backing or a real-time replication, then high chances of the same malware running here is the same that run on the secondary site. So you also work with maybe offline backups, where you're able to restore back your backup from maybe a tape and you continue working around. So in that event, then the business will be able to resume back to normality. That is the cycle for business continuity management. So I want to explain what the differences between risk management and business and BCM and why they work together. So in this slide, it's very economic, but I will share I'll share slides with you guys. So for ERM is enterprise risk management. So ICT risk falls under enterprise risk management. So ERM is a process effected by an entity's board of directors, management, and other personnel, applied in strategy setting and across the enterprise, designed to identify potential events that may cause the entity and manage risk to be within its risk appetite, to provide reasonable assurance regarding the achievement of an organization's objectives. So risk management is basically tied around strategy, the strategy like governance. Okay, governance is the board, management, and key personnel and senior management. Then they have a strategy. The strategy defines what the organization's objectives are, like what do you want to meet. So in that, it's designed to identify any event that would cause effect of this, like anything that will cause the business not to achieve its objectives. Okay. And then for BCM, we'll just read it out. So ERM plans usually look at what we call just the frequent operational and organizational risk. Then for BCM, it's a holistic management process that identifies potential threats to an organization and the impacts to business operations that those threats, if realized, might cause, and which provides a framework for building organizational resilience with the capability for an effective response that safeguards the interests of its key stakeholders, reputation, brand, and value creating activities. So BCM plans will usually look at emergencies and catastrophic events, like something out of the blue. So BCM identifies potential threats, okay, that could impact, that if they occur, they could actually impact business operations. And BCM helps to build resilience, like you become resilient to, in the event that this happens, you're able to recover back. And the main interest for BCM, it safeguards the interest of its key stakeholders, the people who have invested in this particular organization, then the reputation of the organization, the brand, yeah, that logo out there for Coca-Cola, the value creating activities for this particular organization. So ERM will look at normal operations and it's more tied to the business achieving its objectives. But BCM will be more tied to anything that could disrupt, anything big that could disrupt its business organizations, and it's built around building resilience for that organ, and it safeguards the interests of its key stakeholders. So that's majorly the big difference. But then we get to integrate both ERM and BCM. How do you do that? So I've taken you through the risk management process, which is risk assessment and risk treatment. So once you've identified the risks, then you look at those risks that could potentially interrupt business operations. Then you go ahead now and put them in a BCM plan. So BCM is built from ARM. So you identify risks that could come, but then you look at this a catastrophic risk or high risk that could impact our normal operations. So you put them in your BCM. So in BCM, we're going to do what we call business impact analysis, where you look at, in the event that we are hit, yeah, then how long will it take us to resume a particular service? Is that within our acceptable return, what we call RTOs and RTOs? For example, an RTO is the time it takes for you to recover back an asset, and a return point objective is, for example, if we fail to our disaster recovery side and we lose data, okay, then what amount of data are we willing to lose? That's a return point objective. Then you look at your recovery strategies, then you plan for them, then you test them. So testing is where now it comes in, a criticality comes in for doing what we call failover test. So you test to your disaster recovery frequently to see whether, in the event that we are disrupted today, are we able to recover back our services on our secondary site or our DR site. And then you have that as a program that is managed within the bank. So what ERM and BCM around cyber or around ICT will do, they will build what we call cyber resilience. So organizations must be able to identify all forms of risk and implement controls to lower those risks. And where those controls fall short of eliminating the risk, then they must possess the flexibility and processes to adapt to any changes in circumstances so that regular business operations can continue with little to no disruptions. So cyber attacks or cyber risk is so high that we need to integrate both ICT risk management and putting in place BCM plans for ICT to ensure that in the event that anything catastrophic happens, then we are able to recover back to normal operations. So I'll finish off with a quote. Okay? So in all this that I've talked about, this is just professional. But then when it comes to your personal life or your career or your professional life, if there's one thing that I've learned here, or one thing that I have I have gotten to learn over the years is that success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Okay, that courage for you not to give up, that courage for you to learn, to continue learning. For example, there's so many skills out there that we can learn. Okay, so that courage to continue learning, keep on learning. I challenge myself every quarter to make sure that I do a course, even if it's just a free course. Even if I just sign into Fortinet and do a cybersec course, I challenge myself to continue learning. I challenge myself to continue building capacity, to continue networking. So do not get to a point where you feel like, oh, I want to give up. I want to give up looking for a job. But then I realized that I needed to continue, and that continuing and that courage to continue is what got me to where I am. So that is the end. That is the end of my session. So I think I'll leave the floor for any questions. Thank you for
Yes,
yes, Valen.
thank you so much, Gloria. We already have a couple of hands going up.
Yes. Okay.
Valentine, you can go ahead.
Okay, I joined in late, but I would just like to ask our speaker kindly if you can just give us a background of your, your education, and because I came in late, I didn't get it. So would you please just give me a just briefly state your background, maybe your education and your professional experience up to where you are now. Thank you.
Thank you, Valentine. So I'll take the question from Bruno and then I'll answer both of them at the same time. So Bruno, you can go ahead and ask.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, I wanted to ask, in your role, do you deal with any technical skills that you learned in your cybersecurity training as an analyst? Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So I'll first of all, I think, answer Bruno because that was simple. Yes, I do do a bit of technical. So like I mentioned earlier, I do provide support when it comes to doing the vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. So VAPTs are part of my role. So for example, if you're doing a new project and we have a new system, so most of the time I would do risk assessment. But remember, I started off by when I was introducing the aspect of risk, of ICT risk, I say that there has to be two aspects that have to materialize for an ICT risk to be valid. So there's a threat and a vulnerability. And for you to be able to identify weaknesses within a system, then you need to do what we call the vulnerability assessment. So I do vulnerability assessment. So identify what are the weaknesses, what are the threats to this, like what are the exposures, and then I'm able to be able to come up with this is the risk definition. Or yeah, so I do most of the technical part work that I do that I learned from the cybersecurity training is the VAPTs. So back to, I hope that answers your question, Bruno.
It does.
Okay.
It does.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So to Valentine, I'll try and be very brief. So I did for my bachelor's, I did a bachelor's degree in business information technology, that is BBIT. So technically training or professional training that I have undertaken, I've mentioned the cybersecurity analyst training by Cyber Shuja. I've mentioned the ISO 27001 lead implementer. And I have mentioned the certification for, I didn't mention it, there is also for fraud examination. So for the ISO 27001, ISO is it's an international standard around information security, cyber security, and data privacy. So it's how you implement your controls within your environment that are surrounded around improving your information security, cyber security, and data privacy issues. So professionally, where I've worked, okay, as Hope gave an introduction, I have now, I think, almost 7 years experience, working experience. So currently I work at Kingdom Bank as an ICT and Information Security Risk Officer. I've worked in Kingdom Bank from December 2022. Before that, I worked as an associate at Stealth Africa. So I was working as a digital forensics and fraud examiner at Stealth Africa. Before that, in 2021, I worked in the Public Service Commission as an intern, but before joining the cybersecurity, before joining a public service, I've actually worked in the county as a network, as an accounts assistant, as an accounts and IT assistant. So those are my experiences, and I've done internships around risk management. Yes. Yeah, that's my experience. I hope that answers you, Valentine.
Okay, thank you.
There was another hand. I think Milan or anyone else with a question? Okay,
Yes.
go ahead.
Okay.
Okay.
I just wanted to ask, like, for the vulnerability assessment, which tool do you use? Like, maybe which is good for outside there in the field?
In the field for VA. So there's Nessals. You guys have used Nessals.
Yes, we've learned, yeah. Nessus and OpenOS mostly.
Oh yeah. Okay. You've used okay, I've not used OpenVerse since I left Cyber Shuja, but I have used Nessals and Rapid7. So yeah.
Okay. So thanks.
Yeah. And then there are other also, okay, there are also other ways of doing that. So there are many ways of actually doing or running a vulnerability assessment. So you can even use commands, the likes of Vector, can actually use commands. So it also depends on the, is it an application, is it a web, like it depends. So it depends, but there are so many ways. But for just a normal, I would say methods and even OpenVerse, yeah, because I used it while getting the training. So there's methods and Rapid7. Yeah. Okay. Any other question?
Yes, as more questions come in, I also have a question for Gloria. So, like, for entry-level roles in risk management or even threat intelligence, what should you advise people seeking such positions to perfect, maybe, or make stand out in their CV, or even the kind of skills they should be going for?
For threat intelligence
And risk, I mean,
oh,
being a risk officer, what you're doing.
okay. So in risk, what I'm doing, you need to understand control. Because risk function works as a control function. And a control function is like you advise. So you're advising maybe the IT people that you need to, you check the password policy within the domain. Unapata password policy yenu says, let's say 5 characters. I'm just using an example. So it's 5 maybe characters, and that's it. Okay, so you need to understand that this password policy maybe is easily crackable. So you advise by giving them a control. Like I said, I remember as part of the introduction, it was risk management looks at the potential harm, but also advises on how to improve on it. So this is where you come in and advise. Like these are the controls that we advise. For example, you can change the password policy to have a 12 length, to include special characters, to be changed frequency of 30 days. History password maybe 8, include both capital and small letters. So you need to understand controls, and you need to also understand cybersecurity techniques, because if you do not understand how to do how to interpret maybe say the APT, then you will not be able to advise the IT team or the software development team that this is what you need to fix. So you need to understand controls, understand what is the best practice, understand this framework, the NIST, the OWASP, the COBIT, and all this. And then for threat intelligence, you really need to do a lot of research. For you to understand a threat vector, you need to understand what is the exposure that we have. What is the exposure that is there globally? Then you come down to Africa, come back to the Kenya market, and then you come back to the industry. What is the exposure that is there? For example, let's say bank exposures more will come with fraud. Where do these fraud come in? Okay. And then you also need to understand what are these malicious IPs that are used for fraud. So you need to understand and be able to do a lot of research. So threat intelligence requires really a lot of research, but for working as a risk side of it, you need to understand controls. You need to understand what it is that you're manning. Okay, what threats are there, what exposures can be exploited. For you to understand them, then you're able to advise and say, we suggest which treatment options, or we suggest that you do it a different way like this. Yeah, I hope it answers your question, Hope.
Yes, it does. Yes. Then you talked about something about testing, like the business continuity plan. So just asking, like in the banking industry, how often do you guys test your business continuity plan, and what does testing involve? Is it like when we're doing a fire test, there's a whole fire drill and all that. So what does testing a business continuity plan involve?
Okay, so for a business, for example, in a bank, a business continuity plan has different aspects of it. So we identify the threats that could be exposed, for example, fire. So for fire, you do the fire drills. But for cyber attack or IT disaster recovery, most of the time a disaster would be caused by, let's say, a cyber attack, or let's say our data center gets flooded. Yeah. So we test that by doing what we call failover tests. So we have a DR site or a secondary site. So apart from the main data center that we have another data center in a different location with different links. Okay, so we have the primary links and we have the secondary links. So we fail that by operating our system. Let's say we do it quarterly. So every quarter we schedule for a test over where we roll over all our critical systems to our secondary site. We don't operate from the primary data center, so we are operating from a secondary site. So that's how we actually test business continuity for IT related processes, and for other aspects we do fire drill, that we do emergency response. For example, we tap the alarm and then see whether our 24/7 response guys will actually show up, something like that. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That answers my question.
Okay, you're welcome.
So any other questions for Gloria as we come to the end of this session? Yes, William.
Yes, so I just wanted to ask how was her transition from maybe getting into this new field of cybersecurity? Like, how did she feel when she started the journey after finishing from Cyber Shuja? And maybe if there's some tips she could share with us.
Okay. Wow. Thank you, William. So that's a very interesting question, and I will try and answer it in the most honest way. It wasn't easy for me transitioning because I felt like I was moving from like a less technical role to a more technical role. But one thing that helped me transition is I had built a passion around digital forensics. So, and also I did not take the cybersecurity course lightly. As much as I had a background to having done an education degree in IT, most of my experiences prior to Cyber Shuja were not around IT related, but I understood. I knew nilikuwa najua how to fix a network, how to do the normal, how to. I understood IT for itself. So when I joined the Cyber Shuja program, I didn't even understand, like sikuwa najua how to do a VPT, how to run scans and all of it. But when I joined, I was very passionate. Like I wanted to learn a new skill. So with me, there was an interest. I wanted to learn the skill. So when I got in, I got you see the guys like Fraser, Meshach, they're very good and they were really good. Like these guys took on our class, si tunafunzwa basics, but for them they already know how to do it. So I used to reach out to them because like, hi, either call Hash or Fraser or Meshach. I'm like, nimeshindwa kufanya this module on Hack the Box. Can you help me out? Yeah. So in that we built a group. We built a team of 6 people. Me, there's Jennifer who's running the program with you guys now. And 4 other guys. We formed, I remember it was our first, it was our CTF group. That's the group we used to do CTF with. But besides that, we used to do discussions of work, of learning. Like tukishamaliza training, we go and do our assignments together. So that helped me to actually understand the skills. And as the course progressed, it became easy for me. And then when we got doing the digital forensics, I really got interested. So I did I did digital forensics and then got into a digital forensics firm where I was doing fraud examination and my major role was doing digital forensics, like collecting evidence. Okay. And then from that, I transitioned now to information security or ICT risk, which is more of like, it's not really a technical role, but I understand the tech part of what I am what I need to see within our environment. Okay. So I need to understand what is normal within an IT environment. So tips for you to transition or for you to be able to get into this, first of all, build an interest. Okay. If you've already built an interest in a particular aspect, then specialize in it. Do the free courses. You can do free courses online. Just try and pick a part where you specialize and get to understand your stuff. You see, there are people who are very good with VPTs. Like Ukempa VPT does a very good job. There's somebody else who's really good with forensics. So master your art. Pick an interest. Pick an area of of interest. Once you pick the area of interest, then build on it, build on our capacity. It can be either through online videos, it can be materials. You can just get materials from expertise. You can get mentorship around that expert subject that you want to venture in. Because even before I joined ICT risk, I remember I did digital forensics. I was like, if I can join a bank, because I know banks are usually even get fraud. Now I know how to do investigations for fraud. Then I'm like, if I understand how fraud happens, then I can advise how to put in place controls that can prevent these frauds from happening, especially the information like IT related frauds. So understand your subject and build your expertise around that. Talk to the people in that field, because I remember I talked to people within who are doing risk and compliance in banks for me to understand what they were doing and what this information security is, and then what does my cyber analyst course or training and experience in fraud examination or digital forensics bring in. Okay, so understand that, and that will help you to be able to build. And then do not apply for jobs. Okay, we didn't get jobs within the first application. Apply for this job. I remember Prof. Judy used to tell us one thing. Ladies, we always want to get it 100%, but guys are they can apply for a job that they meet 30% of the criteria, but a lady has to meet 99% of the criteria. I would challenge you, apply for those jobs. They may be looking for somebody for that role, but your CV could impress them to a point that they will tell you, we have this, maybe we have an internship, can you come in for an internship for a role that suits you? So apply for jobs, and then build your expertise, and then show interest. If you do not show interest, then even the people who are handing you over the job may not trust you with it. So you have to show interest and passion for them to be able to trust you with it. I hope that answers the question, William.
Yes, you have. Thank you so much.
Okay. And then another thing, build a circle of friends and people that you, because I remember when after we done with the cyber, we had our WhatsApp group, so we used to send each other the applications like Unatumia, then help each other also out, prepare for interviews, network with people. Yeah, that will also help you out.
Okay, so any other questions? We don't leave anyone behind. Okay. So thank you so much, Gloria, for going through business continuity management, enterprise risk management, and even going ahead and telling us what your experience is as a risk officer and even the transition for you. We really appreciate. I hope those on the call have learned something and even been motivated. I'd like you guys to look at Gloria's LinkedIn profile. I found it quite motivating seeing the positions she's been in. I've been scrolling through. So since seeing the positions she's been in, seeing her transition, she also has a background in accounts. So it's quite an impressive profile. Also, in terms of soft skills, check out her, is it called the introductory statement? We've been going through your branding statements, and you can pick one or two things from that. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for joining the call. Thank you, Gloria, and thank you for giving back to the Cyber Shuja community. So
You're welcome.
have a good, thank you.